Does that work?
Yep. I will add it to the stage. And let me do that for the moment. All right. So like I say, I'm I really liked when I read the description of this talk. AI is definitely the hotness. I'm at a conference, and sure enough, guess what sessions have the most people in them? Right? It's all the AI talks. But what I liked about the description, I mean, this looked like more of I don't want to say just an introduction to AI, but hey, what all is out there, right? What in the Microsoft realm, what can you use, right? Because it's usually the hardest part is figuring out where to start with. I think David's going to help us with that. One last quick thing. Sure enough, I'm going to turn over David, and then I'm going to actually drop off. I'm going to still show up here, but I'm going to actually. We've got the attending party. And I'm a big believer that, as a speaker, I should be at the parties, not just because they're fun, but also to network with attendees and everything. I believe in being part of that. So I do apologize for not sticking around. I really would actually like to see this talk. Great part is it's being recorded because it's on YouTube and Twitch. So I will be watching this afterwards because, not just to check up on things, but because I really want to hear this talk. So with that, David, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chad. I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence and specifically some of the tools that Microsoft offers to do generative AI, generative artificial intelligence. Chad mentioned this before. I'm actually hosting a user group here at the Microsoft office in Chicago. You can see Chicago is right behind me. It's my hometown. And so the reason I bring that up is because my phone might ring and the guards downstairs might say, hey, there's somebody here that didn't register. Should I let them up? And so for 10 seconds, I'll just answer the phone and say, yes, let them up, and then hang up. So I apologize in advance for that interruption, but I'm the only one here that can do that. So this is me. I work for Microsoft. In October, it will be 11 years at the company. It's been a great ride. Work with a lot of smart people. You can find me online pretty much anywhere at my name. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, just anywhere. But you can also find the things that I've specifically am publishing. My blog is at davidgr.com. And Chad mentioned a TV show that I have called Technology and Friends. If you go to technologyandfriends.com, I've had over 800 episodes there, and I've been doing that for about 15 or 16 years, interviewing smart people about technology. You may recognize people like Chad that are on that. You might recognize some of the previous speakers at the Louisville user group. I also have another TV show called GCast. The URL is on the slide as well. And on that one, these are just short videos to show you how to do something. Like I have one on .NET Aspire, how to get started with .NET Aspire. It's about 12 or 13 minutes long. So please check that out. Please smash that subscribe button. I very much appreciate it. And then, by the way, these slides, I have a link to these slides at the end. So you notice this last slide, actually, there are some URLs on there. People like to take pictures of those. Well, you don't have to. I'll just show you at the very end the link to this slide deck, and then you'll have a link to every single slide in here, plus all the notes and so on. All right. I want to talk first about some of the IT revolutions that have happened in the past, because we're in the middle of one right now. There was the PC revolution. Started with the IBM PC, and then all the clones that came out with that, and the MacBook later on. There was the internet revolution. There was when the smartphones first came out, Steve Jobs stood on stage and pointed to this little device, and everybody just went crazy over it. Cloud computing announced itself, changed the world, democratized the ability to do massive amounts of computing and storage. And then recently, artificial intelligence. There's been a huge amount of hype around that. And what all these things have in common is that when the public started to become aware of them, when all the hype started, they had already been around for a long time. There had been smartphones for years before Steve Jobs stood up on stage. ARPANET had been created decades before Azure and AWS were invented and became very, very popular. Same thing with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has been around for at least 50 years. Conceptually, it's been around for thousands of years, but really it dates back to the 60s and 70s. The reason that there was so much interest in it now is because of this concept of generative AI. Generative AI is going through a revolution right now. A lot of it has to do with our friends over at OpenAI. OpenAI is a company that has developed ChatGPT, which is a tool for answering questions and searching the internet and asking questions in a human readable language like English and getting responses in a human readable language like English. So it's a lot more user friendly than just using your basic search engine. They also created another tool called DALL-E, which does something similar. You can ask it to generate images using English language prompts or any human. Sometimes I'll say English, but I really mean it's human readable languages because they support multiple languages. And that's what's going on. And Microsoft, I work for Microsoft. Microsoft has partnered with OpenAI, and I use that word very deliberately, partnered. We didn't acquire them. We didn't buy them. We're investing in them, and it's an advantage to us because we get access to a lot of the technology and a lot of these large language models that have been built by OpenAI. And it's an advantage to OpenAI because they have access to Microsoft Azure, so they can deploy these models onto Azure and take advantage of the massive scalability that Azure provides, the reliability that Azure provides, without having to maintain their own private data centers. All right, I want to start with a couple of definitions. I threw out some of these words already. Artificial intelligence, what does that mean? Well, artificial intelligence refers to making computers think close to the way that humans think. And when I say like as human thinks, I mean the ability to learn by looking at data rather than explicitly writing code and telling computer what to do, allowing it to look at data and learn things just from the data without writing new code, and to use reasoning that's more in tune with the way that humans reason. So again, computer programs tend to be explicit. Do step one, do step two. If some condition is met, then do step 3 or 4. But they tend to be very heuristic in the way that they approach data. Well, artificial intelligence, the way that humans think, we tend to be more, let's take in data and process that data and recognize patterns in that data, and then draw conclusions from that. And that's what artificial intelligence does. And then one last piece of it is it having the ability to correct itself. So without having to write new code to make changes, tell an artificial intelligence system that hey, what you thought, your assumptions, the patterns you inferred from this data, they're wrong. This is the right answer, and having that correction being built back into the model. These are the things that go into artificial intelligence. There's obviously a lot more than that, but I think this is the fundamental part of what makes AI AI. And a couple more definitions. Generative AI, I mentioned that earlier. This is a subset of AI. That's mostly what I'm going to talk about today. And this says that we can look at existing content. The software can look at existing content, and from that, infer how to read that content and how to create that content. So in the case of languages, it uses large language models. It looks at large amounts of text, it goes out and scours the internet and looks at all this public information that's available and says, okay, this is English language text. This is how English language sentences are formed, and starts to understand what are nouns, what are verbs, what are synonyms. So if you ask it a question in a language like English, it can start to understand that. And when it generates an answer, it can generate sentences back to you in a language like English. And it does that with large amounts of data. It can do something similar with images. By looking at lots of images, it can understand how to create an image. That's what DALL-E does. It can do things like with audio as well. If it understands how voices and languages are spoken verbally, then it can generate that same thing without actually having to type that in. So this is what generative AI is all about. And when we talk about generating text, it uses these large language models. And OpenAI has created one called GPT, which is used in ChatGPT, and Microsoft uses GPT in a lot of their large language models. There are other models out there from other vendors, and there's some open source ones as well, but this is the ones that Microsoft is using. Why is it important? Well, it solves a lot of problems here. Here's a few lists of some common problems and how generative AI can actually address those problems. They can make you more productive, doing things like making searching more easy, more intuitive by being able to ask questions in a language that a natural language like English, and be able to get responses back from that. As a software developer, I'm going to guess there's a lot of software developers in this .NET user group. It can generate code from just a description of that code, or it can generate a description of the code from when you give it code. It can describe that. It's great for documentation or just for you understanding somebody else's code that's given to you. It can create things like tests based on code, things like that. For process automation, there's a lot of things that computers can do a lot faster than humans can. Lawyers can use it for reading lots of legal documents really quickly and then summarizing those documents. We can look at patterns in documentation or in messages to determine whether or not they look like they might be fraud. We can do it for enhancing the customer experience. And a lot of people complain about bots, about chatbots online. Say, oh, I don't want to talk to a chatbot. A chatbot is something that's it's very impersonal. Why would I want to talk to a chatbot? It's a valid argument, except that would you rather talk to a chatbot or would you rather wait online for a half an hour for a human being? Because humans don't scale very well. You know, there are a finite number of humans that are working for that company, and that's so given that choice, you know, some generative AI can understand the questions you're asking, try to answer those questions in a way that you'll understand. And if it can't find the answer, then it can hand you off to a human. But this makes a much better, more positive experience. And then also for generating content as well, generating marketing materials, generating images. In this slide deck here, actually, I used a generative AI tool to generate the pictures that are in here. So we can do this thing here. Let's see, not these pictures. These I copied off of certain logos from certain websites. But I am going to talk about some of the tools in Azure, in Microsoft Azure, that are available for you to do generative AI. I'll talk about most of the tools on here in some detail, and I'll give demos on some of them. We're limited to time. I only have an hour or so we won't go into a whole lot of detail. But as Chad said, he's going to go into more detail next time. So I'll give you a broad overview, and then hopefully you can dive deeper in either on your own or next month's meeting. But these are some of the tools: Azure OpenAI, Azure AI Search. Azure OpenAI is the basis for building. I'm going to guess that that's what Chad's going to talk about, is using those APIs and OpenAI to incorporate those into your application and actually allow you to generate your own AI. Use these things to tap into those large language models. Azure AI Search, I'll talk a little bit about that, but that's for building search capabilities, either searching the internet or searching internally using natural language. Azure AI Services, you may know this already as Cognitive Services. That's been rebranded as Azure AI Services. There's a lot of Copilot tools, a whole bunch of Copilot tools that are available inside of Microsoft. The one that I use most often is GitHub Copilot, which allows you to do code generation and code understanding, and 365 Copilot, which works with all of the Microsoft Office tools. Whisper, which I haven't worked with at all, but it's a tool for generating audio, and Microsoft Designer, which is used for generating images, and Copilot Studio, which is a low-code tool for building AI solutions, as is OpenAI Studio. All right. I want to talk a little bit more about search, because search has changed. Search is started out as keyword search and sort of evolved into this natural language search capability, which I'll show you on the next slide here. And we can use that to do things like searching the internet, or we can use something called RAG, which I'll go into detail in a minute about that, or we can use both. We can do keyword searches and RAG search. Let me show you what that means. When we first started using the internet to search for kittens, because of course the internet is full of kittens, this is what we did. I don't know why I'm getting captions in a weird language here. I don't even know what language that is. Notes, grid lines, color. I want to see if I can correct that. For some reason, this is showing captions. View slideshow, record, play narrations, use timings, show media, monitor, parameters, subtitles, maybe there. Let's try that. Shift function F5. Hello. Oh, good, that stopped. All right. So anyway, so the Bing and Google and other search engines that I guess those are the two that are left standing, but there used to be a lot more of them. You type in a word, kittens in this example, but then it would return a bunch of links or a bunch of images or articles related to that word. It's pretty simple. It works. It works really well. I mean, I use search engines quite a bit, but it's limiting. You have to know what you're searching for. You have to know that word that you're searching for. With natural language search, which is built into Bing Copilot, you can ask it a question like this one: suggest an outline for a presentation on artificial intelligence. There it is in English. It'll understand that question, and it'll present information to you in a way that you can understand. I presented it back in English because I asked the question in English. And this is built on top of the tools that OpenAI has built. ChatGPT does something similar. Bing Copilot has enhanced that and built that into Bing. So you can see there's an advantage over just doing keyword search. But you can take that a step further using something called the RAG pattern. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, in which you can still ask these questions in a natural language, in a human readable language like English, but instead of searching the internet, you provide it with your own data. You say, here are the documents I want to search. Maybe it's inside of a SharePoint repository. Maybe it's inside of your CRM system or your email system or whatever. You can point to systems, even private systems, and allow users to search those using natural language. This is what the RAG pattern does. Here's a little picture of it here. If you build an application, then it uses the Azure OpenAI tools to understand when a user enters a question in a language like English, to understand that question and then route that question to Azure AI Search. And Azure AI Search has the capability of searching things like databases and document stores and files on disk. And so you can build very powerful search engines that allow people to use natural language to search for data inside of your company. And if you like, you can actually do a hybrid search and say, as part of this orchestration, not only search for your internal documents, but also use keyword search as well to search for out on the internet. So you can do both of these things. So the key is, let me go back to this knowledge here, is your orchestrator would understand what the question was, asked in a language like English, and then decide, where should I search? Should I search on the internet? Should I route that to one of these data stores? And use Azure AI Search to do that. Here's an example of that here. One of our partners is a company called Elastic, and I set up a RAG search to say, how do I change my health benefits at Elastic? And that information is not really available externally on the public internet, or maybe it is, I shouldn't say that, but it would be hard to find. It's really buried inside of some HR document internally at this company. Well, because Azure AI Search has researched or has searched and indexed these documents, and because this LLM understands this question, then I can provide information about how do I actually change my benefits at Elastic. All right, another thing, I mentioned this Azure AI Services. This used to be called Cognitive Services, so it's been around for a few years. And this is a set of APIs that allow you to very quickly, with minimal amount of code, develop applications that will recognize and understand speech and generate speech, that will do recognized language, translating from one language to another, understanding things like sentiment analysis, what is the tone of a language. It'll be able to look at pictures and documents and tell you what's inside of those, do optical character recognition, identify objects in an image, identify people in an image, all sorts of things like that. Do content moderation, so detect whether or not there is potentially harmful content in an image. Really powerful set of tools here, all available as Azure AI Services, so that you can just call a simple API either through REST or through an SDK and build really powerful applications that will do this. I've got some demos. Oops, I've got some demos coming up here, but I just want to close the slides by talking a little bit about responsible AI, because as you're building these things, there's obviously some danger in doing some harm. There's privacy issues. You may accidentally, or maybe deliberately, reveal some personally identifiable information that should not go out. There may be documents, if you're indexing internal documents, you want to make sure that there are guardrails around that to say, if someone asks a question and the answer is contained in the document, they don't have rights to that document. You should not be returning that document to people who don't have rights to that. There's inclusiveness issues. If you're building an application that's design, if you're building an application and the models you're using are built on top of existing data, there may be biases in that data. You may have applications that you're trying to, find screen resumes and say, I want to find out who are the best people to match to be a nurse, or who are the best people or to match to be a software engineer. Well, historically, there was a very strong gender bias in those two industries. There's been a lot more men in software engineering. There have been a lot more women in nursing. Now, there's nothing about that gender that makes them more qualified for those professions, but the data may suggest that, it looks like more men are getting this job, more women are getting that job. And so therefore, it may accidentally say, without meaning to, you may take that as a criteria, and you may eliminate qualified women or qualified men for that role. So all these things are potential. There's transparency issues and fairness issues. I guess that one to describe is also as fairness issue. Transparency is all about making sure that somebody that you let people know where the data is coming from and what are the potential biases of that. And you have somebody responsible to say, all right, there's some accountability. Who is going to be, if there is a problem with this, who is the person that's responsible for correcting that model and making sure that taking that feedback and making it more fair. Another problem here, my Teams is showing up here. Hold on one second. Let me quit Teams. There we go. F5. Back to here. F5. All right. And then finally, just when you're dealing with Microsoft has made some commitments here. One of the big ones is that if you're using data, indexing data using a tool like Azure Search, that data is encrypted.
Unknown caller.
And so that data, if you have some assurances that it's stored in Azure Blob Storage, and the same tools that are used to secure Azure Blob Storage are used for Azure AI Search. And then as you're asking questions and as people are asking questions, or as the tool is generating these answers, that data is not used to train the broader large language model. So the large language model were built on the public internet, on the text in the public internet. There's a lot of text out on the public internet, and potentially we could use the questions that you're asking and the answers that are all the text that's inside of these documents that you're indexing to help improve that large language model. We don't do that. The reason we don't do that is potentially there could be some private information there that you don't want to go out to the public. So none of that is happening there. And of course, there's all the encryption and private virtual networks. All the tools that are available to you inside of Azure are also available inside of here. They may or may not be turned on. Sometimes it's up to you to say, all right, I'm going to use a virtual private network for this. But they are available to make your applications more secure. All right, those are my slides. I'm going to do some demos now. I want to start with this one right here. This is a cool demo. Somebody at Microsoft built this. This is just a few years ago, the U.S. government released oops, that's not what I wanted. Hang on. Azure features. This is a description of it. Released all the tools around the John F. Kennedy assassination. And those were sealed for a long time. So in 1963, I was 1 year old, and President John F. Kennedy was assassinated We believe it was Lee Harvey Oswald that assassinated him. I say we believe that because he never went to trial. He himself was assassinated before the trial. And somebody indexed all these documents that were released years later and allowed people to search for them using natural language. And that's what this is going to do. But it looks like this link has changed. It used to point to a website, and now it's pointing to a source code repository just in the last 48 hours. So this, let me see if I can get to the website. Is there a link to it here? Revectorization, speech input. This, I just ran this link yesterday, went somewhere else. Deploy. I don't want to deploy it. I just want to look at it. And why is it going to here? Maybe, all right, hang on a second. It's possible that let me grab just the text of that and do that. Maybe my slide just has a mistake in it. JFK, there we go. Let's try that. JFK demo. Sure enough, they've taken down the website and they're just pointing to the source code repository. Oh, I can't show you. This was a cool demo. Let me just see if it has, after running this, so they're just asking you to deploy it. Oh, this is unfortunate. Well, if you take the time to actually deploy this demo, what you'll see is the ability to use natural language to search for documents, and not just search for documents based on keywords, but if you search for Oswald, for example, it would return a list of documents in which Oswald appears typed inside of an image, like a ping image. If handwritten in the notes, if it says Oswald, there are some code names the CIA used to refer to Oswald because they didn't want to mention by name when they published things publicly. Pictures of Oswald, things like that. And then you can also do things, find documents which contain both Oswald and some other piece of information, because there is a relationship that's established between these using a technology called vector search. And so I guess I can't show this demo. What a disappointment. Okay. All right. Let me try that right here. I doubt that this is going to work, but no, that's exactly the same thing. Looks like they took that demo down for some reason, or maybe it's just down temporarily. All right, that's okay. I have other demos here. I want to show you Microsoft Designer. Microsoft Designer is a tool for generating images based on natural language. So this link right here, designer.microsoft.com. Let's go to that. Right here, you can do things, creating greeting cards or icons. There's some very specific things you can do, but I like this general one here, images right here. And here I can just go into a description. And it's actually showing a sample. A fox wearing a jumpsuit in light purple, light blue colors with an astronaut style mask, 3D model, cute and playful. I mean, these are kinds of things. The more specific you are, the better your image generation is going to be. But you can type your own thing in here and say things like an astronaut, or how about, hey, an elephant dressed as an astronaut eating a cake. How about a birthday cake on a mountaintop? It's just, the more specific you are, the more close it's going to be what you're. How about in the style of Van Gogh? Right here. And click on generate. And it takes a few seconds. And there we go. This is exactly what every person needs, a picture of an elephant on a mountaintop eating a birthday cake, dressed as an astronaut. It sounds kind of silly, but you could use this in advertising. You could use it. I use it in my slide deck. So I actually use Designer. I have in here, I think we saw it somewhere, some pictures. Yeah, these pictures right here. I used image generator to create this one and this one. All these pictures here were generated. Not that one, that's a screenshot. But I created these using Microsoft Designer. All right. Let me show you another one here. Designer.microsoft. GitHub Copilot. This is the tool that I probably use. I think this tool I use the most of all of our generative AI tools. And let me bring this up here. Do I have it open already? Yeah, I do have one. So what I can do is inside of Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio or some of the other third-party IDEs, there are plugins that will support this. And with GitHub Copilot, what I can do, a PowerShell file right here, and I'll start writing some PowerShell code. Jan equals 1. So I'll assign the variable, the number 1 to the variable Jan. Skip all that stuff. And Feb equals 2. You can see out now. I'll press tab to finish this. March equals 3. I'll press tab. You see, and sometimes it APR. Sometimes it happens automatically, but it can start to do things like this. And I can do. Here we go. This is an array. Maybe it likes this better, suggesting a better way of doing this, setting an array of months to all of these. Maybe I want that. Maybe I don't. I can just accept that. Or I can say do things like $month equals get date format MMM. So it guessed at what I was going to try to do here, and then output month. Let's say month equals enter month, or how about $month dot too low or something like that. Right here. So it's generating some code for me. I can do something like, how about this? Put a comment here. Create a hash table. It's guessing here. Create a hash table to map months names to months numbers. So it saw I was doing that above. So let's do that. Enter, and you see right here, it did something like this. I only went up to April, so that's what it started with here. And if I wanted to do, say, hey, let's say, get the number of the current month. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I forgot to press tab. Let's go back. Tab to accept it, and so on. I can also do something a little bit more practical, like log into Microsoft Azure. There's code to do that. So this is really useful. Let's say I'm not really that familiar with PowerShell. I know what I want to do, but I don't know the syntax. Of course, I could look it up, or I could just start typing in some comments here. Create a new resource group named Louisville RG in the East US location. There it is. There's the syntax for creating a brand new user group, all built for me. Now, I should point out, this might be wrong. There may be some problems in here. It's based on code, public code that's inside of GitHub right now, and there are some mistakes in there. So you don't want to take it as gospel. It is a co-pilot. You're still a pilot. It's not autopilot. It's a co-pilot, and that's true of all of these co-pilot tools. But it's close. I mean, this all looks accurate to me, but it is really, really close. Let's see, what else can I do here? Oh, let me try this there. Instead of just create a resource group, only if the resource group does not already exist. That's probably a better method. And but it didn't do it. Actually, you can see right here. It's resource group. Create a new resource group named Louisville RG. The East US location only if that should be, let's just LVL RG. How about that? Whoops. Go to the end. And come on. Do something. What is And today it's not working. It's not. I don't like that answer. I don't like the answer's giving. It's just saying, oh, it is actually. It is kind of doing something. This will do this. It just says this isn't the way that I would do it. Oh, here we go. This is better. So they'll try to do it, but if it fails, it won't throw an exception. It'll just silently continue. I should have hit tab and accepted that, and that now gives me the rest of this. So if it fails, then it'll go on and do this. So check to see, does it get the resource group and store it here? And if there's nothing in here, then create it. That's one way to do it. All right. And I can come in here and do things like, let me just highlight all this stuff here, all the Azure stuff. Right click, and you see that under Copilot, there's things like explain this. And over here, it might be a little hard to see on the small screen, but if I make this bigger, here, you can see that it's explaining this code. This is really useful if you inherit somebody else's code or you're looking at code that you wrote a long time ago and you want to learn how to use it. That's one way to do it. Another way is right-click Copilot and say generate docs or generate tests. And here's some tests right here that it'll generate for you. So add this here. So again, just really quickly, this is developer productivity, increase your developer velocity here. It's a nice tool for doing that. Now I imagine there's a lot of .NET developers here, so I've got some examples that I'm going to show you in .NET. Again, I'll try to make this as big as I can. Right here. And what I'm going to do is, in this case, I have this is a sample app. It's out on Microsoft Learn that you can find it out there and download it. But it's a simple app that just calls a web service and returns the results of that web service. So right here, and if I wanted to do it, you can see that it's using an HTTP client, and it gets a response by calling this URL up here, petstore.swagger IOV2/store order, and you pass it an ID and it returns that, but it's incomplete. Let's add some more code to that. And we do that by adding a comment in here to say something like handle the case where the response is not successful, or maybe not HTTP 200. Maybe that's like that. And right here, and now you can see, just check to see whether or not this response is okay. And only then would I return an order. That might be good right here. And that may or may not, let's see, read the response and return it. That's good. It's suggesting that's probably a good idea. Tab, enter, and I got to return the order. Let's finish that out. And that might be pretty good, but maybe that's not the way that I like to code things. What this demo shows you that if I go to another code here I have similar thing. I call a different REST API, different endpoint, and I do check to see if it's okay. But in this case, instead of just, what did I do here? Just returning, if it's not an HTTP 200, what I do, I return an empty string. But maybe that's not really my style. My style is, if it's not a 200, then I generate this error message here, and I log that error message and I throw an exception. Maybe that's what I want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up, let me close that right here, the code. I'm going to open up another file, and with this file open, I'll go ahead and delete this right here, and I'll say handle the case where the response is not HTTP 200 okay. And now what it should do is now it recognized, because this file is open, it recognized this is the way that Dave likes to do these things. So here now it generated an error message, it logged that error message, and it threw an exception. So it respects that. I think they've just added, like in the last month, they've added the capability to go and look through a GitHub repository and without opening the file, figure out what your coding style is. But what's been here for a long time, for about a year, is the ability to look at any open files in your IDE and use that as guidance for doing this. The other thing I could do, let me close these here. Sure, I'll save that, and I'll save that. And I actually have a test. If you're doing test-driven development, maybe you want to write your tests first. And the test is in here. So you notice in this test file, I have a test called get order negative ID. So I pass in a negative, order IDs. In my business, I've decided that order IDs are only positive, and I want to do something. I want to throw an exception if you try to pass in a negative order ID. That's just not allowed. And so I say, all right, throw an exception of type argument exception if I call store proxy and pass get order and pass in a value of -1. And the expected error message will be this negative value is not allowed. So I've written this test, but my code doesn't do that. So I can go into the store proxy, back into here, and specify to say something like handle the case where the ID is negative. I think it knew that because that it knows this is open. It knows it's not really handled right here. And what should happen here, right there. And so now, where did they go? Okay, if the ID is negative, is below 0, then throw an argument exception with this exact string. And so this test should pass when that. So you can see this is really useful. One, if you don't really know how to write tests, or if you don't really know the C#, this will work in a lot of different languages. Let's say I'm writing something in Rust and I want to access a MongoDB database, and I want to call some library that I'm not really that familiar with. I could go online, I could search for the syntax and how to do that and try to apply it to here. Or I could get GitHub Copilot to do a lot of this stuff for me, which is a huge time saver. All right, so that's GitHub Copilot in a nutshell. There's more things you can do. I also have down here, you can type / and you can see there are things like explain code, search code, fix. If I've got a broken thing here, I don't know, let's say, let's do something silly like that, where I just have a syntax error. But I could just come down here and say /fix and see if it finds things that are broken. And it should give me some, don't do that, information on what's broken right here. Somewhere in here. Come on. I think it just gives you the corrected one. You can see that it fixed it right here, as opposed to pointing out what's correct. Pointing out where it's broken. All right. All right. So this is, I think we're done with. Oh, yeah, also, even if you know the language, like if you know C# really well, you know REST really well, it still can save you a lot of time for building out this plumbing code, scaffolding out some of the plumbing code, the stuff that is, you want to spend your time and your energy building business logic. You don't want to spend it on, checking for negative numbers and things like that. So all that stuff here can accelerate your developer velocity, which is really kind of cool. All right. What's my next demo I wanted to do here? How about 365 Copilot? There's a lot of 365 products out there. All the Office products, Word, Excel, Outlook, PowerPoint, Teams, and they all have their own Copilot. So, for example, if I go into Microsoft Word right here, then I have this Copilot icon right here. And from here, I can do something like, let's see, how about write a 5-paragraph article about AI tools in Azure. Let's do that right here. And it will generate a 5-paragraph article based on what it knows about these tools in Azure. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow. I always say it's never extremely fast. And this is a complex thing that it's doing here. This is a little bit slower than usual. Well, while that's going, when I go into PowerPoint here and do something like this, I will click on Copilot here and show you what we can do in PowerPoint. And right here, you can see some suggestions right here. Understand, how about summarize this presentation? That might be a really useful thing. This one only has 35 slides in it, but if you get a slide deck that has a lot of slides, then that might be a useful thing just to summarize it. If you get one, sometimes I get slide decks that have hundreds of slides in them, and I don't have time to read the whole thing. And here we go. So here now it has a nice quick summary of what this deck is all about. You can, I can bring these prompts up again here to create a new one, understand, edit an existing one. Let's do this. Create a presentation from a file. This is pretty useful here. If I hit slash right here, then it'll go into my OneDrive. It's not backslash, no, it's forward slash, come on. Oh, things are breaking today. All right, let me try one more thing here. How about edit this presentation? And how about this, add an image of, not a growth mindset, but add an image of a robot eating a sandwich. Let's see how that works out. Because that's what this slide desperately needs. And there we go. So I can take that and add that to my presentation. I don't think it really makes it better. Right on here. Let me see if Word is finished with what it's doing. Something went wrong. Please try again later. I guess I won't do that demo here. At least it was honest about it. Right up here. I'll try it one more time sometimes, because that's the definition of insanity, right? Try the same thing, expect a different result. Okay, I'm going to stop doing that. It doesn't seem to be working very well. Instead, I'm going to go into Teams. I wish I closed a minute ago. Let me open it up again. And from here, I can maybe start a new meeting. And as long as I'm transcribing the meeting, let's see, start. Oh, I don't want to start it. I want to say meet now, start meeting. Join now. Come on. Your camera is, I don't care about the camera. And if I don't have to record it, but I do have to start the transcription. The walrus and the carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. And then I can go into Copilot and I can ask it questions about the meeting, which is, where's Copilot on here? To my chat. Right there. There it is, Copilot. What about the walrus? And ask it questions. This is really nice for catching up. You join a meeting late, or maybe you missed something and you want to find out what happened earlier in the meeting. You can do this either during the meeting or you can do it after the meeting is over. And this is a tool that I use quite a bit. You know, there are meetings that I missed and I could go and watch the whole thing again, or I could read through the entire transcript, but maybe I only don't want to know a small part of it. And come on. Oh gosh. A lot is going wrong today. I don't really know why I'm getting these errors. So I'm going to punt on this one as well. And exit Teams. And I do have a cool demo. Hopefully this works. I have, let me find my link to it. Right. Where did it go? In here, file, open recent. I'll save that. I have in Teams. My friends and I, we actually recorded the Teams meeting. And there we go. And we pretended like we were going to put on a conference, a one-day conference. So we talked about, let's quit Teams here. We spent, about 8 minutes just talking about it. And here is the recording of that conference. And here, this is a nice thing, a recap. So it suggests some things, recap the meeting, list action items. So I can just come in here and just click recap the meeting, and it'll ask that question, or I could have typed that in, and it'll tell me a summary of everything that we talk about here. You see I've got captions on here, so you can see what we were talking about. Or I can ask it a question like, what do we decide about food, or who is responsible, or, what are the next steps? And come on, hopefully this works. All right. I have a theory that maybe if I open up Chrome, it'll reset everything. Let me see if that works. Oh, I've got to sign in though. I never sign into my Microsoft account with Chrome. And approve that sign in, sure. I can deny it. Did I mistype that? Let's try that again. 73. Yes, it's me. Let's try my Face ID. Oh, I'm using my camera for this StreamYard. I can't do that. Shoot, all kinds of problems here. But what I can do in here is, let me pause that. What did we decide about food? Right there. And this might be a good way of finding the meeting. And what you should have seen is a summary of the food discussion, which was somewhere in here. We talked for about 2 minutes about food, and there'll even be a link to the time, the point in the video where we talked about food. And it'll say, oh, David's going to order food. He's going to call some restaurants and we prefer pizza and so on, unless it says something went wrong. Something went wrong. So I apologize for that. The good news is that I did actually, if you go to aka.ms/gcast, I did record a video of this demo. And so what you can do is go to episode 1, go to aka.ms/gcast, and episode 174, then I have this demo right here. So that's one way. You can see this demo, even though it's not working today. It did work a couple of months ago when I ran it. Demo gods are not smiling on me today. All right, let's see if I can go to the next demo. Back to PowerPoint. We're about an hour into it, so 5, OpenAI. So let me show the Azure AI Services, and then we'll wrap it up with that. I'll show Azure OpenAI. It's a low-code thing. So if I go to portal.azure.com and I log in, I'll show you how to build something that doesn't have a whole lot of code in it. Here, I've built this OpenAI. Actually, I can create an OpenAI. I won't go through this whole thing here, but if I search for OpenAI, you do need to have an OpenAI service to do this. Here, click create, and they're very simple to create. Select a resource group, a region, give it a name. Select a pricing tier. I think there's a free tier, but you can only use that one time, and I've already used it. But there's a standard one. Those are the two options, free or standard. Free, is, as you might expect, is pretty limited. And then all the rest of the stuff is optional. You just click review and create. But rather than do that, I'm going to go back to one that I've already created right here. And when I create this, then I can go down to get the keys and the endpoints. Or actually, no, I don't need to do that. I could do, I use this OpenAI Studio. And Azure OpenAI Studio, then this allows me to create things like chatbots and to deploy those chatbots. So in here, I've got some deployments right here, and I can create a deployment here. I'll call this one Louisville. Select a model. I think for GPT-4 works really well for chatbots. I just want the latest version, so auto update to the latest stable version. Everything else, I think I can take the defaults on. There's tokens per minute. There is a rate limit. Maybe that's what's happening in those other ones that I've ran out of tokens. Tokens they're almost like words. They're usually words or fragments of words that's the way that a large language model consumes text and understands it. But they cost money. Every token you use is going to cost you, I don't know, a millionth of a penny or something like whatever. I don't know what the dollar amount is, but you can rate limit. So if somebody doesn't write a program and churn through and it's cost you a lot of money, you can limit how much they can use. On here, there's some content moderation filters in here. And I can do that. And I can click create. It doesn't take very long to create this. And come in here. And once I've got this right here, then I've deployed that. There is a playground right here that I can use to create things. And so one of the things you can do, select the template, and there are some on here about the IRS or writing assistant, Xbox customer support, also things like that. We're going to use the default right here. I think it was already on the default. But you can enhance that. You can add, for example, some questions and answers and give it an idea of the types of questions it'll receive and the types of answers. What is life? Life is about helping others. And things like that. Or you can, these are kind of sample things. So if your business has certain questions that it wants to ask it, or once that you expect it to ask, and have those answers pre-built. But you can also give it the idea of the style of those answers. Now I want to apply changes here. Where is that? Apply changes. Please select the apply changes button. Where is that? Studio code import. Control F. Apply. Oh, there it is right there. Thanks. All right. Right there. But you can also point it. This is the RAG pattern. You can point it to a data source and say, and that data source could be documents inside of a blob storage container or inside of a MongoDB database, or Elasticsearch, which is a third-party product built on top of Azure AI Search, or point it to a URL, or just upload files to point to this here as well. And those files will be stored in Azure Blob Storage. But I can point it to, let's say, address, and I'll point it to, resource, blob storage. I have to tell it where to store things. Yeah, search DG test search. I didn't mean to do that. Right here, and which storage container and the index name. I'll call it DG test, and the address itself. How about davidgr.com? And in here, once I have this, then I'll just set the defaults here. What are they? Semantic first. I want semantic. I want to do natural language searches. And I'll just take the defaults for the rest of this. And now I've basically built a RAG pattern. Oops, what's wrong here? Authentication type. Please resolve the following errors. The Azure has disabled RBAC authentication. Do I have an API key? I'm not sure if I do. Save and close. Okay. And then it's going to index all the data that's in the website. I pointed it to my blog, and it'll take a while, and it'll index that. So while that's going, I think I have another one. I'll just go out to the portal and use one that's already been created. So if I go to this OpenAI here, Azure OpenAI Studio again, and I'll select a deployment that exists already. Here's one that uses Turbo 3.5, and I'll open that in the playground. And I think this is pointed to, what does this say? I think I pointed this to a website. Tokens progress, Azure. No, I didn't. Prompt. I guess I didn't do that. I thought I did. Let me go back to deployments. Did I do it here? This one I created earlier today. Open that in the playground. Session settings, parameters, start chatting, templates, examples, add your data. I guess I did not save it here. So let's see if that finished over here. Ingestion in progress. So it does take a while to actually consume all the data in my blog, index it, and then I can start asking questions. I can start asking questions now, but it won't really uh, get information about my blog. But I'll say things like, tell me about data visualization, because I have a lot of articles on data visualization. Let's see if that's going to work here. I think because it's waiting for this ingestion to finish. So I can't finish showing this demo here. Sorry about that. All right, I'll show you this one last demo. The last demo I want to show you is going to be if I have an Azure AI service right here. I do need to create that. AI Services, Azure AI Service, right here. And I've created one already, but I can just go in here and create a brand new one. Again, just do the resource group, a region, name, and a pricing tier. I created one earlier today, so I'll just grab this one here. And once I have that, then I need to find these keys and the region and the endpoints, and then I can write code. And I've got some code that I wrote already that will do some things like, these are what used to be called cognitive services. They will do image detection. They will do speech recognition and optical character recognition and sentiment analysis, all sorts of things that are built on top of artificial intelligence tools. And they'll do so using just simple API calls. So I have that right here. And so what this code does is I put into a config file the endpoint, the URL of the service that I created, and the key of that service. And so I'm going to use that then to create this thing called an image analysis client. So this image analysis client, I pass in the URL endpoint and the service key, and that'll create this client object right here. And I'm going to use that to analyze an image. Image is called street.jpg. This image right here, just a man walking a dog down a street. Right there, there's the image. And I can just do that in code. It's not a whole lot of code here. All I do is in this, I've got the location of the image file, and I've got this client that I just created. And now I'll just take that image file and turn it into a stream. This isn't new. I just turned it into a binary stream of objects. And the client has a method called analyze. So this is using the .NET SDK, which is under the hood calling a REST API, and it's called client.analyze. I pass in this image stream as binary data, and then the second parameter is just a bunch of features that I want it to return. I want it to return the caption and the dense captions, which would be more optional captions to it. So caption is just a single caption. Dense captions is a collection of more detailed captions. The objects in it, so any objects you can find in there, there's certainly a man and a dog and a car. And it'll show the bounding boxes of those objects and the coordinates of where those objects are. Some tags. So if you just wanted to get some information to index to say, oh, this thing has a dog, it has a street. And it'll find the people. There's only one person in here, but it's a collection of people. And then once I call this, you can call it synchronously or asynchronously. I'm calling it synchronously here. Then it returns this image analysis result. I call it result. And that result has things like a caption. And I can output caption.text. It has a property called dense captions. And there's a dense captions. And I can output that. I can loop through that. It's actually a collection. I can loop through that and output every one of the dense captions. It has a bunch of tags. So I can get the tags.values, and I can loop through that and output all those. And it also has this idea of confidence, because you never know for sure. It may think, this looks like a dog, but it might not be a dog. I'm 95% sure it's a dog. This other thing here, it looks like a lamppost, but I'm only like 45% sure it's a lamppost. So it gives you an idea of how confident you can, in your application, you decide whether or not, what's the minimal value of confidence you have. If you're doing detection to find somebody that you're going to arrest, you probably want a very high level of confidence. If you want to do just image to describe the image for easy searching, maybe a lower threshold might be okay. So here's the people, and it'll show For each person, it'll show the bounding box of the person and the confidence level of that. All right, so let's just run this, see what happens. So remember, this is the image right over this image right here. And I can go through and just say .NET run, and it should just output a bunch of information about that image using that Azure AI service that I created in Azure. And here we go. So let's go up to the top of this, and you can see, all right, so the caption, a man walking a dog on a leash on a street, 82% sure that's right. I'm a little higher than that. I think it's 100% sure. That's it. I'm a human being. Dense caption, so these are a little bit more detailed and lots of options of man walking on a street. So these are optional things here. What else did it output? We told it to output tags, outdoor, land, vehicle, building, road, wheel, street, person, clothing, taxi. So if you could put this into a database, and if somebody was looking for a bunch of pictures that had buildings in them, this thing is 98% sure that there is a building in this picture here. It's only 90% sure that there's a taxi in that picture. So it gives you an idea of the level of confidence it has in these. Only 77% sure that there's something yellow in here. All right. And woman is only 57% sure. It's really shouldn't be very sure of that, because I could see right there as a human being, there is no woman in that person. And then the people, and there it looks like it found 3 people. So there must be people maybe inside the taxi cab. It has those, and then the bounding box of where to find those people. So there's a lot of information that it can extract from an image. Oh, more than 3 people in front of a bunch of people in here. So maybe there might be people inside of those windows. I'm not really sure. Or maybe there's just things that it thought were people. And what does it have? Yeah, look. Oh, I see what it is. Only 25% sure. Only 20. It's 94% sure. I'm going to guess that's this person right here. And then it found things that sort of kind of look like people, but it's only 7% sure, only 1% sure. So if we were to write an application that drew those bounding boxes, then maybe we get an idea of why it thought at all. Maybe that there is a person in here. There's a person over here, and maybe it thought that this was a person, but it's only 2% certain that it is. So it's being honest about that. All right, so that's way, and there are APIs for all these things for doing text analysis and translation and sentiment analysis and image detection and document recognition. All these tools that are available in this service. You can call them from REST APIs, or there are SDKs for .NET, for Java, for Python, for all these different languages. If you want to do something that's a little bit more user friendly or developer friendly to write these things, so you don't have to be calling REST APIs all the time. They simplify your code. All right, I think that's a good place to stop right here. If you want this slide deck, go ahead to this tinyurl.com/DGAI slides, or you can actually scan this barcode. That should take you right there as well. And then you'll have a link to not only the slides, but all the links inside of those slides. I'll hold this up a second because I have another slide that actually has some more links on it. So DGAI slides, I think that's case sensitive. And then here's some more resources for getting started. That's all available in here. That is my presentation. Thanks so much. Are you guys there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay.
Just trying to get my mouse to wake up.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen. No, I won't stop. I'll keep it on in case anybody has questions.
Does anybody have questions?
I don't think it's your fault that the demos weren't working. There are some pretty big Microsoft issues propping up in the last hour.
Oh, is that right? It's a bad timing.
Yeah.
I would also, because you guys got kind of cheated, I'll It might be my fault. It might be Microsoft's fault. It might be just this building's fault. I don't know. I'll go back to this aka.ms/gcast. This is my one of my channels, one of my shows that I do, and there is a playlist called Artificial Intelligence, and it has a lot of these demos on it. There are 9 videos so far. I'm hoping to add to these, but I'm going to put that in the chat right here. I don't think there's a link on the slides to that, so I will. I'm going to put it here in the StreamYard chat. And I don't know if you all can see that, but hopefully somebody can copy that and share it maybe on the meetup page or something like that. And some of the demos that I tried to show are on there, and some of the ones I try to show will be on there over the next couple of weeks. Because these are notes to my future self. You know, when I learn something, I try to write a blog post and I try to record a video of it. And the number one reason I do that is because a year from now, somebody will ask, has anybody ever worked with me before? And I'll say yes, but I'll have forgotten everything I learned. And this is a nice refresher for that. But it's out on the internet. So it serves as a backup plan. Maybe I should just show those.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, awesome. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was great.
Oh, thank you. It's really good. I wish I could get down there. I didn't tell us, I actually lived in Kentucky for 10 years. I lived in Erlanger and Covington, not too far from Louisville. Louisville is a great city.
Yeah, anytime you want to come back, we're here.
This is a good time of year to come too.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and end the stream, I guess, and